Welcome to the Leap Health in the Workplace podcast. Leap Health empowers individuals and organisations to improve both their physical and mental health. In this podcast, we explore innovative, bespoke, proven health solutions that will improve both your personal and professional productivity and happiness. I'm Anna Reddy. Let's get ready to make small steps to Leap Health. So today's podcast is taken from a recording that I did for NHS Practitioner Health with Dr. Alka Patel. And today we will be discussing taking the heat off the menopause. Enjoy.
Welcome to Taking the Heat Off the Menopause. We are delighted that you're here joining us in our conversation on what is really a very much needed topic of the menopause and the perimenopause. So let's kick off. What I'd love to do is start by introducing you to my colleague here, who is Anna Reddy. So what can I tell you about Anna? Well, Anna is a nutritionist, and she has a background working in the pharmaceutical industry and with a range of other healthcare professionals as well. She's got a very, very keen interest in illness prevention and loves to focus on productivity. And she also hosts her own podcast, which is certainly worth listening to. It's called the Leap Health Workplace Podcast. And on there, she talks about improving workplace and personal productivity. So it's great to be in conversation with you, Anna, today.
Thank you very much, Alka. And now over to find out a little bit more about Dr. Alka Patel. Alka is a GP with Practitioner Health, but she also runs her own online practice as a lifestyle medicine physician and longevity coach. I think we all want to live forever, don't we? So Alka is passionate about helping women to connect with their DNA, to discover, notice and activate who they are, what they want and where they are going. She's also a TEDx speaker, and her TEDx talk, Health is a Verb, Not a Noun, evokes the emotion behind the need to create health as a skill. And I would highly recommend this. After listening to this, it was fantastic. She's also a fellow podcaster and hosts the Lifestyle First podcast, which again, I've listened to and would highly recommend this. And this provides strategic self-care actions to optimal health and happiness. So let's get the crux of this webinar podcast and let's explore what we're here to explore. So Alka, I've certainly seen over the last couple of years a massive change in what women are experiencing in the workplace. How about you?
Oh gosh, absolutely. There has been so much change, hasn't there? So let me think about one of the key things that I've seen change. Well, what do I know? Well, we've definitely got new acronyms in our vocabulary, haven't we? So one of my favorites is, of course, WFH, working from home, or as I like to say, WWFH, which is women working from home. So why have I added this extra WN? Well, if you look back, the first year of the pandemic did see lots of women working from home. And initially, this was really thought to be a really, really positive thing for women. And there have been statistics that have shown that the number of women between 25 and 44 actually in work rose by 1.8%, which is a good thing. So now we're in that second year of the pandemic, and lots of organizations then try to take on what was really learned in that first year of the pandemic and combine it with traditional ways of working. So we've now got, yes, another new acronym in our vocabulary, which is HW, hybrid working. And that kind of creates this sense that, I guess, flexible working is good news for women. But here is the thing. So despite shifting work arrangements, women are actually reporting burnout and stress at alarming levels. They came across a 2022 survey, and this was of 5,000 women. And this survey highlighted that 53% of women say that their stress levels are higher than they were a year ago, and 46% feel burned out. Now, I think that might actually be one of the most significant numbers I do highlight today. 46% of women feel burned out. Now, for me, stress and burnout are areas of my specialism. And the fallout that I've seen from that, Anna, is this incredible spiral towards health issues. I'm talking about anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, diabetes, and on it goes. Because I think the other thing from WFH is women forgetting health. Because really, if it's not done right, working from home and hybrid working means that actually women are taking their eye off the most important thing, which is their health, right? So there's certainly something going on there. So what about you, Anna? What would you say you've noticed as being one really significant change since the pandemic?
Well, certainly I echo everything that you've said, and I do think we're singing from the same hymn sheet, even in terms of using the acronym WFH. I do a lot around working from home without forgetting health, so WFH. Um, but yeah, I think it is a massive issue, and I think if we touch on presenteeism as well, which is has been around forever, and presenteeism to define it is working with suboptimal health.
Mm.
And pre-pandemic, the CIPD did a survey which identified 89% of people had spotted people working with suboptimal health, but only actually a third of companies were addressing it and felt comfortable to address it. So there was a big issue then. Fast forward that, the latest survey now suggests that 84% of people spot presenteeism. So you think, oh, has it improved? It's got lower.
Yeah.
But actually, let's think about it realistically. If you're working from home, how often you're having that connection with your employees who might notice when you're not working with full health. And I think that's something that we need to be aware of. When you're working from home, it's far easier to mask working with suboptimal health, and particularly for women are pretty good at just getting on with it. And equally, when you're working from home, it is far harder to say no to things. So if you're working from home, it's far easier to think, yeah, well, you know what, I could pick the kids up at this time, I could sort the house out at this time, I could sort out my elderly parents. And women really don't like to say no. So I think, although we're working from home has its benefits, we're juggling a lot more as well, because there's all sorts of other things that we think that we need to fit into that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, oh no, for sure. So that word juggling, I don't know about you. Have you actually ever tried juggling? I'm talking about juggling with balls and skittles, not the juggle of life. It's really funny you mentioned that because I had a go once and only managed to, I think, juggle three skittles before everything else just then came crashing down. I was at this circus half day type of workshop, so I tried the whole spinning plate thing as well. And again, I don't think I was spinning many plates. I was certainly a lot of smashing plates, not spinning plates. But actually, thinking about juggling and spinning plates and even that tightrope of work-life balance that we all seem to be working, it really does turn life into a bit of a circus act, doesn't it? I think especially for women who are juggling a lot, and I think certainly women juggle a lot more than men. But I really wondered why is that? Why are women the jugglers more than the men?
Yeah, I think naturally women do think they can multitask more than men. Men are a lot better at just focusing on one task at a time, and women seem to think they can take the world on. And I think maybe a lot of this comes back to history really, and traditional roles within the household. So I don't think we've got away from that, and I don't think we've got over the fact that it's still thought women should keep the house spotless, women should sort out the kids, women should do all those traditional roles. But
Mm.
then, alongside that, women now want careers. They want to show their worth. They want to contribute to the income. And so I think we need to get over what are those traditional roles, and just realise that we're not superwoman. We can't juggle absolutely everything. And we've really got to prioritise and really be focused on what is our why and what are the key priorities around that are going to get us to our why. And like you quite rightly said, we sometimes miss the fundamental importance of health. And without our health and without prioritising our health, then we can't deliver for all the other people that we're expected to deliver. And often you feel selfish prioritising yourself and prioritising your own health. But without doing that, we can't be effective in the workplace, we can't be effective at home, and we can't be the strong women that we want to be. So I think the real key is to realise we're not superwoman, and it's not selfish to prioritise ourselves. Remember about your why and think about the key things that are going to get you there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so picking up on that in terms of health, I mean, our health as women is also very much guided by our hormones as well, and that taps into our why and our priorities as well. So I think it might be really useful to just maybe shift the conversation a little bit to then talk about hormones as well, because we have our menstrual cycle, don't we? And for many women, that can be relatively predictable. But then something else happens and the predictability changes. So we talk about menstruation and we talk about the absence of menstruation, and we use a lot of other words like menopause and perimenopause and postmenopause. And I think it's really important to just distinguish what we're talking about, because these are very three distinct, I guess, psychological, physiological, and biochemical processes that are occurring. So it might be useful just to give a little bit of sort of definition and just make sure we're all understanding this common terminology that many of us are using so much of the time now. So the menopause is in itself a very distinct period of time. So it's the time from your very last period to 12 months later. So if you think about it, you can only identify that in retrospect, because if you have a period and you think it's your last one, and then you don't have one for 6 months, but then do 6 months later, the clock then starts again for the next 12 months. So that you can then go back and say that's the menopause period, right? 12 months later, you're post-menopause, you're postmenopausal. And then we've got that time before your last period, which is when the perimenopause creeps in, peri meaning around. And I think the most important word I've said there is creeps in, because that's exactly what it does for so many women. Like I said, you've got menstruation, which is marked by the start of periods, and you've got menopause, which is marked by the end of periods. And that's a really clear and obvious signal. I guess it's the presence or absence of menstrual blood. But that perimenopause, well, during that, there can be so much that's so different for women. None of us experience the perimenopause the same. So you may or may not have regular periods. You may or may not experience psychological or physiological changes as symptoms. You may or may not have one of the, I think at the last count, it was 34 changes that are connected to the perimenopause. And these all relate from that whole A to Z. So I'm talking anxiety, bloating, breast tenderness, body odor changes, brain fog. That's certainly a new word that a lot of people are using as well. We're talking depression, digestive problems, dizziness, fatigue, all the way down to vaginal dryness, weight gain, and in fact, sometimes feeling like a zombie. That's the Z. So thinking about all of these changes and more, they continue for a significant period of our life as women, when you take into account that whole postmenopausal period as well. And remember, we're all now living much longer than we were 150 years ago. So all these topics, these symptoms, these feelings, whether it's libido and incontinence or hot flushes, these are not easy conversations to have over coffee break at work, are they? Women do really find it pretty hard to just openly talk about the changes they're experiencing, even though they're such common experiences, such universal experiences, despite us all experiencing them differently. So I guess the question is, why is this so difficult for us to have a conversation about what's going on?
Yeah, you're right. It is really, really difficult. And it's quite strange it's difficult, because at the beginning of our talk, we were kind of talking about the way women juggle things. And that was maybe our opinion. If a bloke came in, they might say, hey, up, I do quite a lot of that. They could say that. But now we've got to the hardcore evidence. Women go through the menopause. So this is hardcore evidence that we have different hormones. And yet we find it difficult to discuss. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to tradition, I'm going to go back to history. I think it's because it's always been a taboo subject. It's always been a bit hush-hush. Even your mums and grandmas didn't really talk about it to generations to come, did they? And I think it's something that really needs to change in the workplace, but in our home life as well, that it is something that we can talk about and increase awareness around those symptoms. So you described those symptoms. I love that you said 34, because I'm up to 34 when I find out about the number of symptoms, but people vary with that, don't they? And I probably think there's probably a lot more out there to come. But I think we need to be a bit more transparent about these symptoms, and talk about them, so that it is just a common way of life, that this is what happens to women, and then how we can maybe support them. But yeah, I think the reason that it's probably not spoken about is because of traditions and history. And it's also that understanding and knowledge. So, even if you're going through it ourselves, like we said, it creeps on, and we don't always know what those symptoms are. So we can be experiencing things and not actually, piece it together with it actually being perimenopause. And that's women that are going through it. So how on earth then are men meant to know about that as well? So I think there's a big piece around awareness and knowledge. I think there's a big piece around changing the nature of the topic, that it's not a hush hush, it's not a taboo subject, it's real life. Women are living with it, and change cultures within the workplace as well, so that they encourage it. They encourage women to talk about it as well. So I think it's those, three key areas: knowledge, awareness, and changing cultures and changing the way that we talk about it.
Yeah. So there's probably a sort of mutual responsibility here, isn't there? Who's responsible for having these conversations in the workplace? And absolutely, it does come from you. I think obviously you can start these conversations, but I do feel fundamentally that the workplace can do so much to support women, to enable them to really explore and understand what's going on, and feel that they've got a space and a place to be able to not only just describe what's going on, but also actually for then something to be done about that. So I do think the workplace itself, leaders do have a significant role to play. And there's something that I always talk about when I do talk about whose responsibility is it, and it's really thinking about some A words. So really, if you think about it, it's awareness, firstly, that enables acknowledgement. And then acknowledgement is what enables action. And then action is what enables appreciation. So I've thrown in quite a few A words in there. So maybe I'll just break this down a little bit. So awareness enables acknowledgement. So what do I mean by this? So as a leader or a partner, a manager, in any organization or in any industry, not knowing, I think not being aware of a woman's experience, it's not really a valid excuse anymore, is it? And awareness is happening everywhere. You really have to bury your head in the sand if you're not aware of the issues by now. I mean, take this webinar, there's front pages of papers, the morning news, radio, Facebook, TV, documentaries, celebrities raising the profile of a woman's hormonal experience. The awareness is high. And I think once you're aware, you have to acknowledge the issues, acknowledge the impact: stress, anxiety, depression, marriage breakdown, job losses. These are all the impacts, and you've got to understand that they're present and that they're real. And in any working environment, they come with the woman. It's not something that she just leaves behind somewhere and brings a different experience to work with her. It's just part of her and part of her essence. So I think really the first thing is you can't unknow what you know. The awareness is there. And then the second part, what I said was acknowledgement enables action. So what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is once you know what those issues are, once you've raised your awareness, then you're in a position to take action to make a difference. And we know that these actions can take so many forms. I've heard of so many organizations doing so many different things, and this could range from having one-to-one with women in your organizations, having those more sort of personal conversations as leaders, or setting up open forums to open the discussion around the perimenopause, menopause, and the post-menopause. I know you and I both go into workplaces as well to facilitate these conversations, to have experts coming in and have that be the conversation starter, whether it's sharing some expertise or opening the conversation. There's things around allowing more flexible working. Again, we're talking a lot about flexible working, but what does flexible working actually mean to women? It's not about clocking in and clocking out the hours, but perhaps it's focusing on outcomes more in a more agile way. I know that's a word that you use a lot as well. And really it comes down to creating a space to share, I think, because sharing matters. And I could go on with lots of other actions as well. And then the final piece that I touched on was action enables appreciation. And what I mean by this is really appreciating what women give to a workplace. And there's, again, so much there. You know, with age comes wisdom, and women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they bring experience to an organization. They bring comfort, they bring cohesion. They're often that glue that brings the organization together. So people, workplaces, they've again got a responsibility to allow women in this space in life to have the space and flexibility so that they can even more of themselves into their workplace. So, you know, there really is so much that can be done. I've touched on a few things, but what about you, Anna, from your experience? What else do you think can be done specifically in the workplace?
Yeah, well, I think it's like you said, increasing that awareness, isn't it? And increasing companies' awareness about the risk and cost to them of losing these women at this stage when, like you say, they're full of knowledge, they've got so much experience and so much that they can share with other people. And we all know with age, you get headstrong, don't you? You get a little bit more fixed on the way to go in life. Although, you know, many menopause and perimenopause can give you a slight element of anxiety. In general, I think with age, we've come clear about the people that we are and where we want to go. And your younger self would love to have that. And I think if these older, you know, ladies, not saying you're old when you get to menopause, but just saying, you know, at that age, I think we've got so much to give to younger people to help them flourish through their careers as well. You know, in combination with all that knowledge that we've got to give as well. So I think it's really, really increasing that awareness to companies as the need that they've got to retain these ladies and look after them really, and realise that they can't lose that talent. And but if they do, then they're losing not just the trust of those ladies, but they're losing the trust of the whole workforce, because people see how they treat menopause, and they can set an example for cultures by it. So it sets an example for the type of workplace that they are by the way they manage issues such as menopause. But also they've got to recognise that there's legal implications as well. I do a lot of work with employment law solicitors, and there's lots of legal complications they could get into a mess with if they don't address it. Equally, you know, like HR don't want to be dealing with things reactively. It costs them to be dealing with things reactively. The key is to take a proactive approach. So, like you've said, increase awareness, increase acknowledgement, increase action, just really empower women to steer their own journey through this period of time, and empower other people to be able to support them as well. I think the latest stats that I've seen is that it does actually cost an organisation around £30,000 to £35,000 a year if they lose a woman at this stage, you know, to replace them. So it's a huge cost implication. And then an also interesting report, which doesn't look specifically at menopausal women, but it addresses musculoskeletal and mental health problems, which are all consequences of the menopause. And this is the John Lewis Working Well campaign. This predicts that absenteeism and presenteeism due to musculoskeletal and mental health issues by 2025 will cost £2,605 per employee. So it's a huge amount that if we don't address now and create that proactive approach to managing health early on, is going to have cost implications later on in terms of productivity and cost to organisations. And if anyone's wanting to find out more information around menopause, I would really recommend the work of Dr. Louise Newson, which is fantastic. She's doing a lot of great work around this and has carried out quite a lot of studies. And one of these actually showed that out of 3.5 million women who are aged 50 and over, who are in employment in the UK, half of them reported some kind of symptoms interfering with their work life, and actually 10% of them stopped work. So that is a huge amount that we're losing in the workforce due to this, when actually we could be taking a step back and, like Dr. Alka, you know, said, taking that proactive approach around awareness, acknowledgement, action and appreciation.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we do talk a lot about, and when you say take a proactive approach, we talk a lot about HRT, don't we, approach to managing your own hormones. And it's not quite the focus of our conversation today, but I think, really to think about lifestyle changes in the menopause is really important. So it's, again, that's a very proactive way of taking back control of the direction of your own life, focusing on your lifestyle and what you choose to do, and really sort of take with you to work. And that's a really key area of focus, I know, certainly for me and for you as well, is to really think about those lifestyle interventions that support work in the perimenopause and the menopause and the postmenopausal stages of life. And I think for me, one really interesting area that I think we don't talk about enough is menopause and aging. So what do I mean by aging? Well, I'm not talking about the candles on your cake when you're experiencing the menopause and that sort of aging. I'm talking about your internal cellular level aging. And again, we don't highlight this enough, but what we do know is that men age very linearly. So there's a really gradual change in function with men over time. But with women, there's this rapid acceleration in aging at the menopause, around the time of the menopause. So there you are, sort of linearly aging, and then suddenly, wham, your trajectory totally changes. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that as well. But more than just recognizing it, one thing that is very exciting at the moment is that we can now measure it. We can actually measure what happens to your internal age, your biological age, around the time of the menopause. And in fact, measuring your biological age, it's a test that I do on absolutely all of my patients and all of my clients. Now, this isn't the sort of test that you can get from your GP. So this is a test that I do in my own lifestyle medicine practice. But let me explain why I think this is so fundamentally important, and what this gives us. So there are glycans in our bodies. So they're little molecules that are attached to antibodies, our IgG, our immune system. And what they do is they regulate inflammation. And they're very strong biomarkers of aging. And the reason is that aging is very closely connected to inflammation. And so another lovely word that I love using is inflammaging. So these glycans, they're biomarkers, not only biomarkers, but they're what we also call functional effectors. So what do I mean by that? So what they do, glycans, is they decide if a particular antibody is going to promote inflammation and be pro-inflammatory, or if it will suppress inflammation and be anti-inflammatory. Now, most of us know what we're talking about when we talk about inflammation. We've all cut our skin, the area gets red, hot, and painful. So we've seen this, and we know that inflammation is really important. It's part of our evolutionary pathway, really. It helps us to defend ourselves and fight bacteria and viruses. But actually, here's the thing, right? 150 years ago, we were not living to 30 years plus beyond the menopause. Now, the average age of the menopause is 51 for many women as an average, and it is very much an average. There's a real breadth to that. But most women are living at least 30 years beyond that. And we haven't then evolved any sort of evolutionary pressure to control inflammation. So what this means is that inflammation is now taking over our lives, not as a defender, but as an attacker. And this is very relevant to the menopause. So how does this relate to the menopause? So what we know is that when you measure estrogen levels in the perimenopausal period, just to try and help answer that question, could this be the menopause? Is what I'm going through the menopause? Is my mood changes or my bloating related to the menopause? Measuring estrogen is really unhelpful, because your estrogen levels fluctuate so much in that perimenopausal period. So it's not really a test that's advocated. But glycans are affected by estrogen. And what they do is they integrate your estrogen concentration over a 4 to 6 to 12-week period. So they give you an average hormone concentration. And the key thing here is they can do that even before symptoms begin. So the reason I'm highlighting that is if you think about symptoms, they're almost like the end point. Something's happened way before, upstream at your molecular level, before you even get symptoms. So if you see a rapid change in your glycans, your glycan age, your biological age, you absolutely know that something's going on. And as I said right at the beginning, this could then be the perimenopause because there's a huge acceleration. So if you monitor your glycan age regularly and suddenly something changes, that's when you can think, well, could this be? Yeah, this could very well be the effect of the perimenopause because it's so acute and so obvious. So I think that's something really, really important for us to just, think about. And I really wanted to drop that seed today because menopause and aging are really important things to talk about together. And another reason for this is also around the misdiagnosis of the perimenopause, and that's not uncommon. And if you think about it, there's so many symptoms. We've both said 34, like you said, there's probably many, many more, but mood changes, migraines, gut issues, memory changes, tiredness. These symptoms are also symptoms of other issues that can be going on. And so that's why the doctors would always consider other causes of symptoms that are not perimenopause related. So things like anemia or thyroid problems. So we can see how it can be really tricky to really knuckle down, is this the perimenopause or not? And it's an important distinction to make, and vice versa. Lots can get diagnosed as the perimenopause that could be something else, and lots of women feel it's something else like depression or thyroid problems when actually it's the perimenopause. So I think really important to highlight this. And of course, not everything is resolved with HRT on the back of that. And I know there's lots and lots of really important conversations about HRT going on, but lifestyle interventions are so, so important. You and I both know this, right? You can't take HRT and expect everything to be resolved and still carry on eating donuts and sitting all day at your desk and wonder why you're still feeling tired and can't concentrate and can't lose weight, right? So we absolutely have to focus on lifestyle. And in fact, I've sort of created a formula, a lifestyle method, which I call the Lifestyle First method, which covers 10 very, very key elements of your lifestyle that make a massive difference to your health. And I said right at the beginning, I love acronyms. So the Lifestyle First method is an acronym which spells out lifestyle. So really focusing on life's purpose, identity, food, exercise, sleep, taking time out, your connections, learning habits and emotions, which all then spells out that word lifestyle. It makes it really easy to remember what to focus on. These are really core elements. So yes, have the conversations in your workplace. Yes, have conversations about HRT, but remember to really zone in on, what do I do with my lifestyle? What do I want to change? Because your lifestyle comes everywhere with you, right? Work anywhere, take your lifestyle everywhere. So how are you moving at work? I mean, right now I'm at my stand-up desk, which I love. It makes me agile. It helps my mental clarity. Who are you connecting to at work? How are you modifying your stress? So I think, and certainly when I go and do some of the corporate work and talk about workplace wellbeing interventions, talking about these things is so important. And a lot of people that have taken my Lifestyle First method course have said this is the stuff that makes a difference. So I think it's really important that you recognize that by changing your own lifestyle, you can change your own trajectory as well. And I could go on and on and on, and we can zone in on stress, which is a real potent driver. We could focus on sleep, which we know is so important. And I know, Anna, from your perspective, nutrition is something that you really do focus on from your background. And just I will hand over to you to give us some more detail about that. But what we know from Tim Spector's work is that the menopause and nutrition are really, really highly connected. So that same meal that you ate pre-menopause has a different effect metabolically on you post-menopause. So you can't even assume that what you ate before is the same as what you ate after, because your metabolism really changes dramatically through the menopause. Your glucose response is very different. And again, this comes back to inflammation. There's a higher inflammatory response with food as well. So again, really important to zone in on, well, actually, what nutritional changes do I need to make that give both be a different response as well. So maybe you can talk about some of that, Anna, in terms of your nutritional background. What sort of foods and nutrition could we helpfully focus on, remembering that everything is different for everybody?
Yes, certainly. And you've touched on so many topics there. We could be here all day talking about this, couldn't we? It is just vast. So I'm going to really try and keep it straight to the point. But before I do get straight to the point, talking of your testing, which is absolutely fascinating and key to understand when you're going to start, when you're experiencing these symptoms and you're going through that, because I keep saying proactive approach is important, but it is, because the long-term complications of menopause are cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, women's rates of Alzheimer's increase dramatically to menopause. So by being proactive and putting these interventions in place early on, we have better long-term outcomes. And as I said, HRT is great for a lot of women, and I think there's been a lot of bad press around it that probably needs to be addressed, because it has benefits for lots and lots of women. But having said that, like Alka said, you can't just take something and then lead a lifestyle of unhealthy choices. I worked in diabetes for a long time, discussing wonderful medication that could really, really make a difference to patients with diabetes, but that doesn't mean they can go away, like Alka said, and eat donuts and sweets and sit on the backside forever. It's got to work together. You've got to support yourself as well. You've got to be proactive. So yeah, nutrition is just one of the elements. I use a different acronym. We're both really hot on our acronyms, I guess. But yeah, I use a READY acronym. But yeah, it's exploring lots of the similar areas, but I'm going to focus on nutrition. So I think one thing we've got to keep at the forefront of our mind is it appetite or is it hunger? Because often we misinterpret those two things, and our hunger levels can probably actual hunger levels reduce during menopause, because our basal metabolic rate, which is the amount our body needs just to do basic functions, does reduce with age. But our appetite during perimenopause and beyond can increase, and as our estrogen levels drop, our insulin sensitivity drops as well, which can pose a risk, as you will know, in diabetes patients, if we have less insulin sensitivity, for more weight, particularly to be put on around the middle area, which, as we know, can be a risk for long-term complications. So it does make it a little bit more difficult. Also, as well, we have a loss of muscle mass as well, which muscle mass burns more calories at rest than fat does. So it's really key that we're trying to preserve that muscle mass as well. So yeah, it is quite complex and it can be quite difficult. Added on with that, as we mentioned with the symptoms, you can feel quite tired. You can have trouble sleeping as well. And when we sleep, this helps to regulate our hormones as well. So it helps to regulate leptin and ghrelin, which are our hunger, and the ones that make you feel hungry. So ghrelin makes you feel hungry, and leptin gives you a sense of fullness. So when we sleep, it helps to regulate those as well. So if we're not getting the sleep that we need, it can be impacting on those hunger hormones and make us maybe feel hungrier than we actually are. So what are the things you can actually do to help yourself? As I said, this is a really complex topic, so I'm going to try and keep it, give you some actionable steps. So think about plenty of fibre. And in the UK currently, we get around about 20 grams of fibre a day, when actually we need about 30. So think about your fibre in two sections, a soluble and insoluble fibre. So soluble fibre is a bit like a sponge and it soaks things up. So think about things like oats and things that will soak things up. And your insoluble fibre, things a bit like, think of it as a brush and it sweeps things away through the gut. So things like your root vegetables. But these are really good for creating that sense of fullness, satiety, but also really good for your gut health. And there's loads of evidence there to show that we've got a gut-brain axis. So it will support the way that you're feeling mentally as well during this time. So really try and make sure that you're getting a good amount of fibre. Then think about your protein as well. Again, this will make you feel fuller. So suppress your appetite a little bit more, but also try and preserve your muscle mass as well. And we need protein, which is the building blocks to support our muscles. And then also think as well around maybe some of the vitamins and minerals that you need to increase, so such as your B vitamins to support your brain health. Particularly B12 plays a really important role in the blood-brain barrier. So the blood-brain barrier is a bit like the bouncers on the brain that determines what's going in and what's going out. It's very, very highly regulated, and B vitamins play a role within this. Think about your omega-3s, and I don't often promote supplements, but I think if you're going to supplement on anything, omega-3s are probably one that we struggle to get enough of. We advocate maybe a couple of portions of oily fish a week, but if you are vegan, that conversion rate with like nuts and seeds is a little bit more tricky than if you're eating fish. So that might be one that you want to consider supplementing. And vitamin D as well, which we know is really important for our bones. And during this period of time when estrogen levels drop, our bones are more susceptible to osteopenia, osteoporosis. So I would really encourage you to make sure you get an adequate amount of vitamin D. During the summer months, it might be a little bit easier to do that, but maybe during the months to September to March, you might want to consider supplementing. And then there's lots of evidence around vitamin D supporting our mental health as well. So those are three ones that maybe you want to consider. There's a lot more out there, but for the purpose of today, those are probably the three key players I would think about. But also probably just adding another one here, which goes with vitamin D, is your calcium. They kind of go together a bit like you might think of fish and chips. They go together. You think about your calcium for your bones, but without the calcium, without the vitamin D, it's not going to activate that calcium. So I think often we can get enough calcium in our diet, but we need that vitamin D to activate it. So those are the three areas I'd think about. Think about fibre, think about protein, and think about those three things that I mentioned: B vitamins, omega-3s, and your vitamin D. So I hope that helps a little bit to skim the surface a little bit on nutrition. Have you got anything to add to that, Alka?
Yeah, oh gosh, there's so much, isn't it? I think we probably need to do a whole new episode on and have a new conversation on this as well. So I'm just picking up on the bone side of things that you were talking about as well, because again, the thing to remember is that your bone stock is probably maximal at the age of between 30 and 35, and there's a significant loss of bone strength around the menopause, about sort of 3%. So really important to focus on this. We haven't talked about soya much yet, and that's another topic to talk about, because again, this is the stuff that's out there and people Googling will pick up on this. So soya is very rich in phytonutrients, and interestingly, it occupies estrogen receptors in bone. So what it does is it does then promote bone strength. So there's something there about soya as a food choice as well. And just again, on terms of bone strength, lots of people are now walking a lot, aren't they? And we started the conversation about what changed through the pandemic, and I think we've gone full circle, is that really a lot more people are walking a lot more, which is great for a whole host of reasons. But just thinking about bone health, yes, it helps, but your bone strength doesn't increase without having some weight attached to that walking. So thinking more specifically about your bone strength, a lot of research is pointing to needing to walk with a weighted jacket or walk with weighted ankle supports or wristbands to actually help to increase the bone strength specifically. This doesn't negate walking as a great thing without that, but just really wanted to zone in on that. And when you are thinking about exercise as well, really keep it multi-component. In my course, I talk about exercise basics and go through what all of those different components of exercise are, but we're talking also about resistance exercise and impact exercise as well. Even vibration plates and vibrational exercise is beneficial for bones as well. But we could absolutely keep talking, couldn't we? Do you have one final takeaway, one thing that you would suggest to women who are working with menopause symptoms that they could do? And I'll share one at the end as well before we say goodbye.
I think my key take message, I've used this word zillions and zillions of times, but be proactive, steer your own journey, and make yourself aware of all the symptoms that you are, so that you recognise them early on and then can steer your journey as to how how the menopause takes you. And it's not all doom and gloom. There are so many things that you can do. And all these lifestyle interventions that we talk about can actually be enjoyable. So stay your own journey and enjoy it.
Yeah, no, great tip. Thank you, Anna. And I guess what would I leave you with? Well, I think it's really just at the end of everything that we've talked about today, we talked about so much, is really just to take a pause on the menopause. And I really say this is just to give yourself some space to think and reflect on what's important for me at this stage of my life, and also to think about how do I want to share this with others, because sharing matters. So maybe just pause and think, can I be that person who shares? Can I be the conversation starter for someone else, that this conversation might have such a profound impact and be of such support? Because I think women coming together and realizing they're not alone is so important. So really just take a pause, think about very clearly, which direction do I want to go in next? What's that one next thing that I can take? Start the conversation and really tune in to yourself.
Love it. And I often say make health contagious, which echoes what you've just said then.
Love that. Wonderful. Well, look, Anna, it's been fabulous sharing this conversation with you today, which I think really loves us to just wish everyone listening a happy, healthy day.
Thank you so much. And Alka, if anyone wants to find out more about you, where can they find you?
Yes, that's a great point. I'm sure, I think people will hopefully want to know more about what we do and how we do it, and even just to have the conversation with us directly. So I'm on, the easiest place to reach me is probably through my website, which is dralkapatel.com. And I'm also on all the social media channels at Dr. Alka Patel UK. Very happy to expand on anything that we've talked about. If I've piqued your curiosity about a biological age test and you'd like one, certainly tap into me. If you want support in your own workplace, very happy to come in and start conversations, provide information, be a facilitator as well. I do a lot of that in that workplace environment as well. If you're interested in anything like my courses or anything, you'll find them all on my website. And there's a place there that you can just tap connect, send me a message or a video, and we can get chatting straight away. It'd be lovely to speak. And what about you, Anna? Likewise.
Thank you, Alka. Yes, so for myself, if you want to find out more about workplace health workshops, so I said things such as working from home without forgetting health, or nourish to flourish through the menopause, or food for mood, all different workplace health workshops. It's www.leaphealth.co.uk, or I often hang out on LinkedIn, Anna Reddy, Leap Health. Or if you do just want to get in touch with me direct, it's anna@leaphealth.co.uk. So thanks so much for tuning in, and please get in touch with either of us if you would like any more information. So before you stop listening, I want you to think about how you can make health contagious. Did anything resonate in the podcast? What did you learn that was new? Did you hear something that you thought someone else would love to hear? If so, please share this podcast. Please leave me a review, or please get in touch at anna@leaphealth.co.uk to learn more about how you can improve physical and mental health of individuals and those in the workplace, so that everybody can feel happier and healthier and more productive. Thank you. So today's podcast is from a recording taken at the So today's podcast is taken from a recording that I did for NHS Practitioner Health with Dr. Alka Patel. And today we will be discussing taking the heat off the menopause. Enjoy.